Hello and welcome to the Writing from the Womb podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Unika here with me. Thank you so much for joining us today. Unika has published a book recently and is working on another book, and I'm really excited to talk with you about writing and where this voice that we're writing from comes from. I talk about it coming from the womb so often. Um, that feels like where my voice has come from, and in my writing, since before I even knew that was going on. So I look forward to hearing what we're going to talk about around that. And first, I like to start off each episode with another poem from my book, Goddesses, Lovers, and Dreams. And this poem is part two of a two-part poem. I read the first part in the previous episode, and this one is called Goddess Love 2. I now dare to breathe in your love, to fill my deepest core, shining pure light on all hidden fears. As they scurry about, they will find no place left to hide. They will disintegrate. I release all excuses, carefully untying them from the tips of my wing feathers one by one, and joyfully tossing them into the white water. As the last one lifts my hand, your wind lifts me. My wings know how to fly. I let go into my nature and rise up over the walls I had built around myself to keep the danger out. And as I rise up, I see that all I was keeping out was what I longed for, to hear the song of life whistling sharply in my ears through every cell of my soul in a constant flow of change as I dance through the sky. So this poem for me was about the transformation from feeling overwhelmed and small. That the first part of the poem was about feeling overwhelmed and small, and like I couldn't really experience the divine love, the goddess love that I was longing for, and then having this transformative experience through inner growth and just taking the steps that I was being called to take, and then getting to the point where I realized that I was the one holding myself back all along, and that here was everything that I was longing for, right there, and that I could be what I was longing for. I could become that myself. And it seems to me like the book that you wrote and your experiences may have given you some similar revelations along the way. So I'd love to hear what you have to share about that.
Yes, well, my journey, when you talk about having something, longing for something that you've had all along, when I was growing up in foster care, and I had to drop out of school and started dancing at a young age, I was longing for something. I didn't have, the parental guidance. I didn't live like every child lived. I I just wasn't what anyone would call normal. And um, I decided, after I had danced for so long, that I didn't come that far to just end right there. And I reflected back on everything that I had survived and everything that I got through, and how I thrived through something that a lot of people probably couldn't even survive. So I had to become someone that, I didn't know how to be. I knew that, I didn't want to live the life that I had lived, but I didn't have anyone to show me, the right way to go. So that's when I started reading. And when I started reading, and I started reading nonfiction and self help, it talked about it talked about always looking for something on the outside, that you have to look within if you really wanted to fix the problem or create a better life for yourself. You had to go within. And that's what I had to do, um, to create, the book that I have and the books that I'm going to create. And when you talk about, writing from the womb and healing and things like that, and just expressing yourself, I feel like that is the feminine energy and the feminine version of saying, express yourself and be who you are from within, and don't search outside influences for happiness or healing. Everything you need is within. And I think that's, what the poem was saying also.
Hmm. And just to clarify, because we didn't do much of an introduction, when you said that you were dancing after you were in foster care growing up, can you clarify the dancing experience? I'm taking it you were dancing professionally, but it doesn't sound like some of the other professional dancers I've talked to.
Yes, I was dancing in the strip club, because when I was in high school, I wasn't aware, of how expensive it was to graduate. So the fees and things, I couldn't afford. It was almost the end of the year. It's time to take all these tests and all these things, and I wasn't, able to do it. And I started working at the flea market, selling CDs, and that wasn't enough. Of course, it was just like a half a day job at the flea market. So I met this girl, and she was a bit older than me, and I was only 17. And I used to always see her on the city bus when I was leaving school. And she said she was going to work, and I said, "Well, where you work at?" She was like, "With a pony." I said, "Well, what is the pony?" So she said, "That's a club." She was like, "We're gonna pass it. We're gonna pass it on the bus, on the bus." So we passed the club, and I told her my situation, that I was in foster care, just dropped out of school, because first of all, I was embarrassed. That was one feeling that I had, and that was something that took me a long time to have to heal from, was my self-consciousness and self-esteem, not physically wise, but inner, like my inner self-esteem about myself and my childhood and my life. And so I told her about me being in foster care, and that I dropped out of school because I was embarrassed because I couldn't afford it. And she was like, "Well, you can come and dance." And I'm like, "Well, it's the end of the year." So it was the end of the year. I wasn't able to graduate, and I got into that lifestyle, and I stayed here for so long. And it was times where I would get a job, and I actually had got a job as a medical assistant, and I lost the job because I had started back dancing and got back into that lifestyle because the, I wasn't getting what I was used to for so long. And after seeing having my son and losing that job and getting back into the club and just really observing my surroundings and just looking at what my possible future could be if I did not change. And I looked for love through friends. I looked for love through the foster parents that were not my parents. I looked for love through my real parents. I looked for love through the wrong men. And I really should have been looking inside of me. And I really should have been looking in myself and figuring out what was wrong. And as I did that, I started paying more attention. When I started reading those books, I always loved to write. So I have a million journals. And I used to just write about just the different things I read in books and the different things that helped me change. And I was writing every day, every night before I went to bed, like the things that I did. If I lost a friend, oh well. If I couldn't go to the club that night, oh well. if I had to go and get this job that wasn't my dream job, oh well, I had to search within and I had to do the work. So when people saw that, they asked me, what they saw that I changed, they saw that I stopped dancing, they saw that I was working and that I wasn't going back to the club. So they asked me, what did you do, you know, to help you? And I made the glow up as an interactive journal and an interactive book because you have to go within yourself. It's not in a thick book the answer that you're looking for. Everything that you're looking for is inside yourself. And the glow up has a light bulb on it on the side. Because I feel like the light bulb, my logo for my name is a light bulb as well, because I feel like the light bulb is not only in your brain, like what you see on TV, but the light bulb is in your heart and all through you. You are the being, the creator that is in charge of your life. And I feel like a lot of people would get further if they stopped looking for the fix or for the solution from outside influences and focus on themselves. And that's what dancing helped me realize. That's what heartbreak helped me realize. That's what child abuse and child abandonment helped me realize. That's what everything in my life helped me realize, was that I had to go within myself if I wanted to fix what was wrong with me.
Mm. Such powerful experiences you've had to guide you to that conclusion, which you're right, many of the self-help books say that. But if you just sort of like a lot of the self-help books, and I'm real curious about what the first one you read might have been, and maybe what some of the most influential ones that you remember that just woke you up to some of these ideas. But unless you're really engaging with it, and it sounds like you had a practice of maybe reading a part of it and then journaling your feelings and integrating what you were learning in that book into your life.
Yes. Well, since a little girl, I always loved to read. And that was always something that even in school, in elementary school, that was a class that I was willing to go to, reading and writing. And as I grew up in foster care, I didn't have parental guidance. And although I dropped out at the 12th grade, I was still proud of myself because I pushed myself to get to the 12th grade. Nobody woke me up every day and said, Unica, you better go to school. Nobody did that to me. Nobody made sure that I was learning. Nobody cared what was on my report card. I got myself to the 12th grade. So I was proud of that. And the reading, I drew back to it once I was in, not a disaster, but once I realized that I wanted to change, because I used to like to read fiction series, but this time I don't have parental guidance. So I read nonfiction self-help books. And the first book that I read was Think and Grow Rich. And the only thing that kept me reading that book, because I always feel like only life can teach you certain things. So at first I was going to put it, I was like, this is probably just another book that says, how to be a millionaire or something. But the fact that the person that was rich was like me, didn't have an education all their life. I believe it was Thomas Edison. It was Thomas Edison and Edwin C. Barnes. It was their story. It was the intro. And Thomas Edison didn't have, a big education. He didn't have, the silver spoon that everybody would think. And the fact that the book said think and grow rich and not go to college and grow rich or get this degree and grow rich. The book said think, and I was a good thinker. And I looked within myself, and reading the 48 Laws of Power, that helped me. That helped me survive because there was so many different personalities in the club, and so many men and so many girls, and the club owners, the dancers, the chef in the kitchen, the cleanup man. It was so many different energies, so many different frequencies, and just so many different things going on. The 48 Laws of Power gave me a look into the ways of people. And that's when I started realizing, and that book even talked about looking within yourself. Think and Grow Rich talked about the subconscious mind. It didn't say go out and change their mind. It didn't say go out and trick their mind or make them like you. It said influence your own mind. It didn't say repeat the affirmations to this manager so you can get this job. It didn't say manifest this man. It said manifest the life that you want. And it said change your subconscious mind. Repeat affirmations to yourself. And that's what I did. I went within myself, and I realized that I can't change other people, but I can change myself. And the glow up is the foundation that I use to reinvent myself. And I made the book short because I want people to get up and do. Because a lot of times we get stuck on just planning and talking about what we're going to do and looking at the pages that we don't do. So I made this book so that people could go within themselves and find that light bulb like I did, and find their higher self.
Mm. Well, I really want you to read us an excerpt, if you can, that you feel like will help us both get up and do, like you're saying you want the book to help people do, but also get a sense of, if we get this book, how it might support us to get up and do even more.
I'll read the I'll read you the introduction, and then I'll read you the last chapter.
Okay.
So the introduction: I came alive in the nighttime. Shingle boots, diamond-studded G-strings, and makeup like a burlesque queen. I mixed my Long Island with issues. I rode my weed and worry. Every dollar hit the floor with another piece of my self-respect. Growing up in foster care, I never had much. Since the age of 17, stripping was all I knew as an occupation. I began wanting more for myself. I was outgrowing the club. I didn't want to degrade myself anymore. I didn't want to deal with a man because I needed a tip. I talked a lot of SHIT about being independent, but I worked for every man that walked through the door because I needed their money. I was exhausted with it all. I had to take control of my life or remain stagnant. I didn't want stripping to be the end of my life. I'm not judging anyone in the game because it works out for some. It just wasn't the vision I had for myself. Something deep within told me that I was destined for more, a higher calling. There were habits I had to break and people to distance myself from. I needed a new strategy and way of doing things. I needed a more mature mindset and outlook on life. I wasn't looking for a way out. I started looking for a way up, a way to rise above my circumstances. I was ready to tap into my full potential. For me to overcome the life I had grown accustomed to, I had to completely evolve. I evolved until old friends had to get to know me again. I took on a totally new way of life. The Glow Up is a compilation of methods of self reinvention. I remember sitting in the dressing room of the club reading nonfiction. I bought my self help books to work with me because I was that determined to get out the club. In order to evolve into the highest versions of ourselves, we must get used to being uncomfortable and inconvenienced. Do things you've never done by becoming who you've never been. Glow up. That's
I
the
just I want
introduction.
like a whole crowd of applause right here. I need like an applause soundtrack.
This is something that I want everyone to adopt. This is something, it's actually a bonus, I would say a bonus page in the book, because too many times we compare. And one of, well, my life coach, she says that comparison is the thief of joy. And the biggest thing I tell people is those comparisons are outside influences as well. The reason why you don't feel good within is because you are putting yourself next to something that you have no control over and something that you are not. So I made this chapter, and it's called Mind Your Business, because that is something I think that I put it as the last chapter, but it probably should have been the first chapter, because a lot of people could avoid a lot of things if they go within. A lot of women could if you tap into your own feminine energy and go within, you wouldn't have to worry about things on the outside. So it says, eliminate anything that doesn't further your cause. Align your life in the direction of your definite purpose. Don't get caught up in time wasters like television and gossip. Stop looking at other people's lives on social media for no reason. Stop doing things that have no purpose. Create your own world and live your best life in it. Don't compete, compare, or copy. Learn to coexist without competition. Today's society is in a race for success. Everyone is busy trying to outdo the next person. People are racing to a finish line that doesn't even exist. You are your own brand with no need to compete. Every person has a gift of their own, a life that can only be lived once. Appreciate your expedition. You are not a comparison to anyone. You are unmatched. You don't need to compete for a spot that was reserved just for you. When studying others in your field, be inspired, but don't imitate. Set the bar instead of living up to someone else's standards. You don't have to be the next version of anybody else when you can be the grandest version of yourself.
Hmm. I just want to invite listeners to just take a deep breath and absorb some of this crystal clear wisdom that Unica is sharing with us from her book. Feel that light bulb lighting up inside of us. I feel it in me. And just these messages that I need today, shining light on places where I might be comparing myself or wishing I was different or my life was different or bemoaning some aspect of my life. And your words so clearly shine the light on. I love what you wrote about the line that said, you don't need to compete for a spot that was made just for you. Did I say it right?
Yes, you don't need to compete for a spot that was reserved just for you.
Reserved just for you. And it's true. And I mean, I work with this kind of work all the time, these kinds of philosophies in my healing work all the time. And hearing someone else say it in a unique way, so direct, and it just really brings it home, because we can have our philosophies, we can do our inner work, and then things come along like, my community is struggling with wildfires right now in California. Where do you live, Unica?
I'm in Florida right now, but I have relatives in Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
So
Are there fires down south too? I'm in Northern California. But I think so. I mean, it's all along the whole entire West Coast. Are your relatives being affected by the fires right
Well, she doesn't stay by any woods in Long Beach.
now? Okay.
I have to call my uncle to see if he does. I'm gonna call her back later on because she was taking a nap. But they're in Long Beach. I don't know if they have any wildfires exactly in their area.
Yeah, they don't tend to go into the big cities. And Long
Mm-hmm.
Beach is a pretty big, wide, spread out city that might not be affected, but it's probably more in the outskirts. And I live more rurally, and so
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of people that are quite close to me in my life. My landlords had their home burned down just in the next town over. And we evacuated for 8 days, and a family member had her home burned down. And when those kinds of things happen, it's easy to re-stimulate old patterns of trauma response from childhood that we may have, I've been working my whole life to overcome those and to heal from those patterns. And so when things in the world remind you of feeling powerless or helpless as you might have felt as a child, it's easy for those patterns to come back up. So I just want to thank you for sharing such potent medicine through your words today, and reading your book and to us today, and sharing your powerful journey of finding that for yourself. It's so potent, when you really find it for yourself, because nobody gave it to you, right?
Yes.
You didn't have a mom. Like, I had a mom that would guide me, and yet I
Yeah, I
still.
didn't have anybody. I had myself. I got in foster care at 11 years old in the sixth grade. And from that point on, I was basically raising myself. And that's what made me turn to books, because everything I didn't learn from life, if I had a question, I didn't have a mom or dad. So I had to go to these books. So that's what made me pick up on books. And I'm blessed with the gift that I'm able to write the kind of books that I read.
Mm.
So I'll be able to give people the wisdom that that I have, and I'll be able to give it to them in my own way, and maybe a language they would understand a little better.
Mm. Yeah, and the languaging, especially in the way that you were describing at the beginning of the book, um, the environment there is very poetic and lyrical, and very appealing. I really enjoy it. Your voice in this book is just crystal clear, and a beautiful testament to this distillation. They talk about um, the pressure that it takes to create a diamond out of a lump of
Mm-hmm.
coal, and and I really see that the pressures of the life, that the circumstances of your life, and I'm inspired by you to see that even in myself, and the pressures of what's happening in my life right now, which is kind of a bit more hardship than I've ever really experienced before. Of course, it's happening towards more the end of my life. I'm getting ready to turn 50, and suddenly, things are burning down all around me, right? Whereas up until then, I've led somewhat of a graced life, um, and but your voice of having been in that from such a young age, and having that refinement, and finding that light inside yourself with no one else handing it to you. I imagine you must have had a mentor at some point along the way. When you're reading these books, you're getting yourself out of being in the strip club, you're starting to take some steps. Didn't you just say that you had a coach that you work with?
Well, I have a coach now.
Uh-huh.
Now that I'm like on my personal growth author journey, she's like a personal growth coach. I just had her for like a few months,
Uh-huh.
but going like back at the club and my childhood, I was all alone.
You didn't have any mentors, and so
Uh,
you really got yourself on your own.
I've lived in over 30 foster homes and group homes.
Wow.
So I always ran away. I didn't I didn't I didn't have any mentors, and I feel like that's something that I was missing because I could have avoided a lot of things if I had a mentor. And another thing I want to tell people, everybody around me was making me feel like I was okay. Everybody around me was making me feel like being at the club was okay, not doing anything productive was okay. And that's why I say if I would have had a coach back then, or if I would have had a mentor back then, I would have avoided some things because everyone around me, and I talk about it in the book, that some people you have to let them go because those are not real friends that are letting you be stagnant. And that's what it is, it's being stagnant. It's just staying where you are. And if you feel within, go within yourself, go within in your womb, in your heart, in your soul, in your mind, go within. And if you feel like you are not reaching your full potential, but everybody else around you is making you think that you're doing okay, you have to listen to within before you listen to any other outer entities. You have to listen to yourself.
And so there must have been a moment when you were reading those books and everybody was saying, no, it's fine, just chill, it's fine. There must have been a
Well,
moment where you said, no, it's not fine. I got to do something.
well, I'm gonna be honest. I, you know how some people say that they've seen something that they want it to be like, or I didn't have that moment. I kept seeing what I didn't want. Everything I didn't want kept happening to me. Everybody I didn't want to be like, I kept seeing them. I saw the 40-year-old version of me if I stayed in the club. I saw the grandmother version of me if I stayed in the club being drunk all the time. So the things that I didn't want to do and the ways that I didn't want to be are what motivated me. And I even remember being in the club reading the book, and one girl said, if she was gonna be reading, she should have stayed home. I didn't even care. I was just that determined. I didn't even care what she said. She could have said whatever. I was that determined to get out of the club. I kept reading Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill and Robert Greene, if I was to say that I had a mentor, those two men were my mentors because those two books and The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clayson, those three books went, I had one book telling me how to think, which was Think and Grow Rich. I had one book telling me how to act, which was 48 Laws of Power. And I had one book telling me how to get my money together, which was The Richest Man in Babylon. So if I could say that I had any mentors or any kind of guidance through that journey of real hardship, not me writing this book and now I got a coach. No, not that. The real, I'm at the club every day. I'm drinking 3 Long Islands a night. That type of person. Those 3 books are the books that changed, just changed everything.
Mm. Thank you so much for spelling it out like that and for sharing your passion about those moments. That it's so powerful, and it's such a testament to your inner strength, um, to make those changes for yourself, to listen to those mentors, even though they're, I mean, it's the power of books, right? Because
it's the power of books, and people don't understand that. It's the power of books, and it's the power of what those books tell you. Because you can read novels and stuff all day, but you have to read the right stuff. And those books are what told me to go within. everything that those books told me, they told me not to do to other people, but to do to myself.
Mhm.
They didn't give me directions for somebody else's bank account. George S. Clayton, he didn't tell me about somebody else's gold or somebody else's money. He was telling me how to handle my own money.
Mhm.
Napoleon Hill wasn't telling me about hypnotizing somebody else's mind. He was telling me about my own imagination, my own subconscious mind, my own other self. He even calls it a other self.
Mhm.
You know, Robert Greene, he told me to avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. He didn't say go make the go make the unhappy happy and go make the unlucky lucky. He didn't say that. He told me to go do stuff for me. So that's where I started looking within, because those books told me to go look within myself. And this book is making you go look within yourself and making you go and act. It's making you go and do something. It's not making you, as soon as you open up the book, it's self-analysis questions.
And
So
is it a journal format? Like, are there blank pages in there, or do you have people have their own notebook on the side?
there's some blank pages in the back.
Uh-huh.
And then I have like a journal. I always have a lot of journals. So, but you can answer the questions in the back of the book, or you can just answer them next to the question mark if it's a yes or no answer.
Right.
And so this book is like an interactive guide. Even I put in here my I am statement. When you talk about when I do affirmations, and this is just the I am statement.
Mm-hmm. And you got some blank lines in there that you can just fill in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Gotcha.
so you fill it in,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a lot of that. I tell you how to set your goals and like the format, and if you want to do a routine, and I tell you if you want to do 15 minutes and 30 minutes and exercise and just different things that the book tells you to do. And I made it to be interactive, and I made it because I know I a lot of my friends, even now, my friends, they're asking me to hold my book, and they don't read them. They're giving back to me in 2 days. So that's why I made this book like this, because I want it to be interactive. I want you to get up and go do.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to grab your paper and write this goal down and write down what I just said and fill in this blank and answer this question. You're gonna want to put down my book because you're gonna have to keep writing stuff about yourself. Well, you're gonna be able to do the same thing that I did when I looked back at my journal and wrote the glow up. You're gonna look back and see all your goals and all your affirmations and everything you said, and you're gonna be able to go tell somebody else. And that's the whole reason why I do what I do, and why I do the inner work that I do, and why I write, and why I write from the womb and from the soul and from my brain, and from all my chakras and everything else. So that's why I do what I do, and that's what it's all about.
Mm. I'm just so inspired by you, Unika. I could sit here and listen to you telling the inspirational wisdom. It's so, you're really embodying it. You're really living it in a beautiful way. And, the depth of what you've overcome to be where you're at now, it's so palpable. And it really comes across in the clarity of your words and what you've written and how you put your book together. It's just such a blessing to have you here. So if folks wanted to, yeah, thank you. If folks want to get a hold of your book and do it, right? Glow up.
Yeah.
If they want to get a hold of your book, how can they do so?
Well, my website is missunika.com. So it's MSUNIQUEKA.com. And the book is also available on Walmart.com and eBay. So if you just type in The Glow Up by Unika or The Glow Up, on my website, walmart.com or eBay, you'll be able to go ahead and order the book.
I love it. Okay, wonderful. And we'll put links in the show notes as well. So folks can just click on the link in the show notes wherever you're watching this video or listening to the audio. Thank you so much once again, Unica. And listeners, you probably know that if you would like to learn more about the Womb-Centered Healing Temple and what's going on there, the other podcasts, the other trainings and courses and mentorship programs, you can go to wombcenteredhealing.com. And I'm really excited because I've got a workbook, an interactive workbook that I'm creating too, the Herbal Womb Wellness Workbook, very similar idea of having people interact with the book and write things down and actually take action. Because you can read these herbal books or these wellness books and just skim through or and not make any changes, right? But to have a book that really calls forth that action. So you're inspiring me by showing the way of how to make that interactive book. I'm going to keep going because of what you shared. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so people can get on if you want to learn about my workbook too, you can get on my newsletter. And I'm curious, Unica, are you planning on doing any classes or anything around your book, like online workshops or talks or anything like that besides podcasts?
Yes, I actually have an online course. It's on thinkific.com. I'll give you the link to that as well.
Okay.
That course is called Self-Made and Self-Published. And just like the Grow Up is very interactive, and it's basically how to write, market, promote, publish, and sell your own book. And it also has a and it has a bonus chapter on how I did my pre-orders, and I had sold out pre-orders. So I made that as a bonus chapter for the online course. And I'll give you the link to that.
Awesome. Boy, I'm going to maybe have to sign up for your course. Thank you so much for creating that from your experience. So inspiring, Unica. Thank you so much again. And I'll let you go be with your family. Thank you so much. I don't know if you do hugs, but I like to do these across the world, across the country hugs, because you're on the other side of the country. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's all for now. Until next time.
All right. Thank you.